Welcome to the Million Dollar Coach Business Podcast, a show for coaches who are ready to up-level their business and take their impact, leadership, and results to $1 million level and beyond. If you're ready to break through your limitations and start taking powerful action and become the seven-figure version of you that your business needs in order to grow, scale, and thrive, this show is for you. I'm your host, Amanda Karlstad, master coach, high-level business mentor and advisor, master intuitive, and business growth and scaling expert. Let's get down to business. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's show. I'm super excited to have you here. Today, I have a really important episode, one that is going to be, I think, very relevant to you, no matter if you're at six or multiple six figures in your business, if you've already crossed that $1 million mark in your business, or maybe you're working towards that first six figures. What we're going to talk about today is going to be relevant and I know is going to really serve you. And my intention with this episode is for you to walk away with clarity on some reasons why you may be what I call under-earning right now in your business. And I think this is a really important conversation to bring to all of you as I see this over and over with clients that I work with. As we have clients coming into our programs that more often than not, actually in 100% of the cases that me and my team have worked with, there has not been really truly one exception to this, that at different points in your journey as a coach, in building your business, it's highly likely that at some point you will be under-earning, at least to some degree. And today I want to talk about some of the reasons as to why that happens. And I want to give you some recommendations and some clarity around how to stop under-earning in your business and really get on the path to making that next quantum leap in your business. So before I dive in, I think it's useful to define what I mean when I say under-earning. So under-earning to me, and this is my own definition. This is not some definition that I looked up online or, even typed into ChatGPT. But my own definition of under-earning is really earning less than what you're capable of. It's less than what you know deep in your bones you are capable of, that you truly want. And it can be a way of, in some cases, I think, settling for a lesser version of you in your business, in your revenue, in your profitability. Essentially not having the business, the life that you truly set out to achieve through this vehicle of entrepreneurship, through the process of growing and scaling your coaching practice. So I'm not talking about average income ranges for life coaching, for example. What I'm talking about in this episode is what is in your heart, what is inside of you, what is your true desire compared to where you are right now in this moment. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that the clients that I typically attract are the ones who have big goals. They have big goals for their life. They have big goals for their businesses, for their experiences in this lifetime. And I've always really looked at my work at the very core part of it as really helping to usher in what I call the modern millionaire, is to help my clients truly step into their potential, to expand into a potential that often isn't even seen by them. And I will say that one of the frustrating things for them, and you might be feeling this right now as you're listening to this podcast, is that deep down, you know that you're capable of so much more. You know deep in your bones that the level that you're at, that there's a whole new level that's available to you. You know that this new level is going to require a different version of you. And my friends, you are right. And what I want to talk to you about today are some of the most common reasons that I see for most coaches and for what I would call under-earning in their practices, in their businesses. And I want to offer you some new ways of thinking, some new perspective, and give you some real tangible actions that you can take today and break through if you're in a cycle of under-earning. All right. So the first and most common reason that I see so many coaches who have either reached a plateau in their business or have reached a place where they might even feel blocked from that next level, or that might be taking massive action in their business and doing a lot of different things, yet there is still essentially maintaining a certain revenue level, or they're just not seeing the level of growth that they truly want. And the reason that I will say first and foremost that this happens is because they're lacking clarity. And this lack of clarity does show up in a number of ways. And one of the ways that it can show up is in a lack of clarity surrounding their offer. And what I mean by this is in the program or programs. For example, if you're offering more than one in your business, maybe you have your core program, but you're seeing that your clients and the way that things have evolved, that they might need something different. And there might be a next step that you're not quite sure what that looks like. You might be, for example, second guessing your offer completely. You might be in a situation where the delivery of your offer has actually become too complex for you only. And in order for you to truly scale your program, you're going to need to bring in additional support. You're going to have to rework some things essentially. And it might be that maybe you've even outgrown your offer and you've reached a point where it's time for a rebuild. It's time for an evolution, a refinement of your offer. So there are a lot of different ways that this can show up. And we've worked with clients that have experienced this at all different levels and in all different types of scenarios. So if you're feeling like any of these may resonate with you, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to also know that this isn't about you doing it wrong. I want you to know that it's actually very normal to reach a place in your business, especially after you've created a certain level of success. Typically, I see this happen at the multiple six-figure range, that you will start to question various aspects of your offer and how you might be delivering it. So first and foremost, I want you to know that this is completely normal. I want you to know that if you are finding yourself right now in this situation, that it's very, very important that you find clarity, that you do the work, which in many cases, it looks like slowing down to speed up, or to enlist a higher level of support to help guide you through the process. Or it might even mean, and I know this might be scary for some of you listening, but to actually sunset, to actually teach out, to stop enrolling for a particular program if it's no longer in alignment. Whatever this might look like for you, just know that it is very common. And in more cases than not, it's going to require some time. And what I would highly recommend is that you do get support in this process, because what I know for sure is that with the right support, you can greatly speed up this process and it makes it much less painful, which is something that we help clients with all the time. The next place that I see a lack of clarity come in that ultimately contributes to what I call under-earning in the business is a lack of clarity in the result that you help your clients achieve. One of the things that I have observed, and we've worked very closely with clients on over the past year to 2 years, that has been very definite, and where I think most markets have evolved, at least to a degree, is that because there have been so many advancements made in so many areas of our lives, I'm just thinking in terms of, for example, women's health. There have been some huge advancements made, some huge research, and leading experts that have come onto the scene just in the past couple of years that I have personally watched that have really shifted how we look at, for example, women's health and women's wellness at different stages of life. So, for example, 5 years ago, at least I didn't see it, there was not the research, there was not the level of conversation that's happening around hormones, for example, and things like the importance of lifting weights in middle age, diets, and the conversations that were happening even just 5 and definitely 10 years ago were very, very different from the research and the conversations that are happening today. So I share this example with you because in many ways, today's middle-aged woman, someone like myself, because of what we now know, because of the research, because of the conversations that have started to happen, I think it's pretty safe to say that there's been a pretty massive evolution in women's fitness, in women's wellness, especially in midlife. And this is very different from what it was even a decade ago. So, how does this play out in a coaching business? Well, if you're a women's health coach, for example, how you approach that conversation, the result, the process in which you help your clients achieve their results is going to look very different than it did just a few years ago. And to the degree that you can articulate this, there is a level of precision that is needed. And this goes for any niche. So if you're in a place where you feel as if your message might not be landing like you wanted to, if you're in a place where you're not getting as much engagement as you used to, if you're under earning in any way, one of the things that I recommend you look at is how are you articulating the result that you help your clients achieve? Are you clear on it yourself? Can you state it very clearly? Or does it take you several sentences to explain what it is that you help your clients do? These are just some of the ways that I see a lack of inner clarity that then leads to a lack of external clarity. So I want you to just take a moment and look at this for yourself. All right. Another way that I see this manifest for clients is also in a lack of clarity surrounding who really are their best and their most ideal clients. And one of the things that we work with clients on all of the time that comes up at different points along the way is that you might be in a place where who you started working with very early on in your business, the clients who were the right fits for you at the time, may not be the right clients for you today. And I see this happen more frequently than not. So one of the things that I would offer to you here is that your clients, I want you to think of them as being on essentially a spectrum, and they're going to be on a spectrum of their own journey. And this is irregardless of what niche you're in, what you help them with, what you coach on. Anyone that falls into your niche is going to fall somewhere on this spectrum. Some are going to be earlier on in their development journey. Others are going to be farther along. And what I would offer is that and this is a big pro tip, is that you focus on those clients that are the most ideal for you to help them achieve the result. So for example, let's say that you're a marriage coach and you help your clients repair their relationship to the degree that maybe your clients are perhaps considering a divorce, but through your process, they actually end up with their dream relationship, with their dream marriage. That is way better than they could have ever imagined. I want you to consider who exactly are those clients who, based on your experience, could come into your program where you could work with them, and without a doubt, if they fully showed up, if they fully did the work, that you could, even if you wanted to, you could guarantee that they could get the result. That, my friends, is who you want to talk to. That is who you want to be creating content for. That is your best and most profitable target market. And what I have found is that time and time again, this can and will change as you evolve as a coach, as you gain more and more experience. The longer that you are in this game, one of the things that you are going to inevitably face is having to tweak who it is that you help and who you market to. And this is really, really important, because what happens is when you don't do this, a lot of times, and I've seen this play out in many, many businesses, is that you could end up resenting your business, or even in some of the most extreme cases, your clients. And this, my friends, I think we can all agree is not where you want to be. So clarity around your most ideal clients is very, very important. All right, the next place that I see a lack of clarity that really impacts you and ultimately leads to under-earning is in having a lack of clarity in your vision. And I talked about this earlier. And one of the things that I am so passionate about in my work, and I have been since day one in my approach, is in the very bespoke and the deeper work that I do in helping my clients to crystallize their vision. And so often when clients come into one of our containers, one of the things that I see happen is that they're actually lacking clarity in terms of their vision, in terms of what they really want their business to look like. And sometimes at the next level, sometimes at the multi-million-dollar level, or even 8-figure level, it's very, very difficult for them to be able to see, to allow themselves to see what that might look like. And for me, in my work, this is something that I'm always looking at for each and every client. It's not only where their business is today, but I'm also looking at the most expanded version that it can be. I'm looking at it from the highest level of expansion, the highest level of vision, because my goal is to not only help clients create quick wins, but lasting wins and true sustainability and success over the long term. And the reason this is so important, the reason I see a lack of vision is such a huge contributor to under-earning in the business is because without this clarity, there's a lack of direction. The filter in which decisions get made is cloudy at best, or even non-existent. There can be a real lack of purpose that develops where the vision, because that bigger vision is not clear, there's distraction, there's a lack of focus, there's a lack of leadership that ends up happening when the vision isn't clear. So I would offer to you that if this is you, if you're currently under-earning, I want you to look at the level of clarity that you have around your longer term vision. How clear are you? What is it that you're truly building? Can you see it? Can you speak it with confidence? Or are you not sure what it looks like? I want to reiterate here that there is no judgment if you find yourself in a place where you don't know. But what I also want to challenge you with is that it's very important to find this clarity, to find that vision. And I do believe that this, just like everything else in the business, is going to evolve over time, and that is okay. But what will cause under-earning is when you're not clear, when you feel a sense, a loss of direction or purpose, and whether you've had the vision in the past and then lost it for whatever reason. Or if you know you just need to solidify it for the first time. Either way, you've got to find it. Okay, the last place that I see a lack of clarity showing up is in the more tactical strategy side of the business. And something that I think is really important to talk about here is that the online market has evolved, especially in the last 5 years. And what I will say is that there are a lot more tactics that are available today than there were even just a short time ago, even if we look at 5 years ago, and the different ways to essentially grow your business. Now, this isn't always a bad thing, but what it does do, the result that has occurred in the observation that I have, is that because there are so many different options, because there are more social media channels that we are using to, and we have the ability to use to grow to our business, because there are different strategies today that didn't exist even a decade ago, what has happened is that there is now more confusion as to the quote unquote right way to build the business. And I say this in quotations because I am a firm believer that there are a lot of different ways to go about building your business. And it's going to be very nuanced to each and every business. And I will also say that within that, there are many core foundations that no matter what strategy you might be using are going to be important. So I want to give you an example of this. So the online world, especially, there has been this long-standing argument between, especially in the coaching space, between using organic channels versus using paid channels to grow the business. And there's been an argument over which way is better. And depending on who you're talking to, depending on which side the person falls, it's very much going to dictate their strategy and the conversation, the content that they're creating, their teachings, etc. And while I think that it's amazing personally that we have both of these tools at our disposal to grow our businesses, in fact, I just want to be clear here, I don't believe there is one right way. I think there are pros and cons for each approach, and the approach that I actually prefer and that I teach and that I really work to develop with all of our clients and that I very much believe in is that for most coaches, it is more of an and versus an either or. In fact, I personally love the combination of both working in the business where there is an element of organic working, where there is an element of paid working. And I could have a whole conversation about this, and I've touched on this in previous episodes, but it's ultimately going to come down to a few factors. Factors to like where the business is currently, what assets, what resources we already have that we are working with within the business. It's going to come down to what are the goals of the business? What is the bandwidth of the business owner? What are the preferences? What are the strengths of the business owner? What is the overall vision? What does the offer look like? What is it that we're actually selling? There is a lot of consideration that needs to be made around various different things. But ultimately, what this argument has created, at least on a very macro level in our industry, and I can say this because I observe this daily, is that the vast majority of coaches, even coaches who have created a fairly high level of success, is that there's mass confusion about which strategy is better or what strategy they should be using or whether they should be using paid or whether they should be using organic or whether they should be, for example, integrating a low ticket offer into their funnel, for example, and the list goes on and on and on. And it's because what has happened is that there are actually cases where every strategy that's out there, every strategy that you may have heard of, we could find cases where that has actually worked. It has worked for someone, somewhere. And many times what has worked for that person, that then becomes what they end up selling in the market. That becomes their process, their system that they then sell, which again, ultimately can work and is likely working. The problem comes in when you don't have the certainty in your own vision, in what you want to create, in even having potentially the assets or the audience to make that process work. A lot of times we don't see what's happening on the backside. Or it might be a case where a coach might be looking at a certain strategy, but they don't have the actual resources or the time to put forth into that actual strategy to actually make it work. And so a lot of times I boil these tactics and all of these things into what I call shiny objects. And the reason this is very, very important because it doesn't matter how well something might have worked for someone else. If you are misaligned with a certain approach, it's going to be very, very difficult to get results. So this is why in my work, in the work that we do with clients, it's very, very personalized. It's very much bespoke to the client and finding that alignment so that it leverages the client's strengths, the assets that they have already, what is already working in the business. And once those things are dialed in, it then becomes about layering on from that point. But more often than not, it's very common to feel confusion about your strategy, to really not be clear on how to actually grow the business. And part of this is because there are so many messages that you're seeing on a daily basis as far as the next best way to grow. And if you're currently feeling this way, this is also a very critical point for you because in order to stop under-earning, you're going to need clarity in your strategy and be implementing and taking consistent action on this strategy in order to move it forward. So my friends, as you can see, there are so many reasons that you may be under-earning as a coach in terms of your clarity. And I would invite you to re-listen to this episode if you need to. Lean into what I just laid out here. Look at where you might be currently experiencing a lack of clarity. And if you're ready to make a quantum leap, if you're ready to finally step into your next and highest version, then I invite you to join us. There is no better time than right now with this new awareness to make a different choice, to choose to step into your greatness, to stop the cycle, to stop the pattern of under-earning in your business. All right. I can't wait to help you make this last half of the year extraordinary. Have an amazing week, my friends. I'll talk to you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the $1 Million Coach Business Podcast. If you're ready to step into the $1 million version of yourself and scale your business to 6, multi-6, or 7 figures and beyond, go to amandacarlstadcoaching.com.